The Registrar of Banks, Curator Anoosh, called it the biggest bank fraud South Africa's financial system has ever seen. 5 senior bankers who were at the helm of VBS Mutual Bank are accused of siphoning at least R1.5 billion from depositors at the bank, and it's now been just over 6 months since the Reserve Bank placed it under curatorship. How is that process going? I'm Bruce Whitfield. This is Taking Stock. We're going to talk to the Curator Anoosh Rooplal, who is my guest today. Anoosh, take me back, the last 20 years. We've seen Sambo, for example. That was mismanagement, misfortune. African Bank, Investments Limited, lent too much money, didn't collect enough of it, the interest rates, the risk was wrong, that went to the wall. Regal Treasury Bank went to the wall for different reasons. This one looks different. VBS Mutual Bank, an out-and-out fraud. You can say that without any fear of contradiction.
Yes, Bruce, I've heard many terms. Biggest bank robbery of the year, Ponzi scheme. There's been a few terms battered about. Unfortunately, it is the sad reality of what's transpired at the bank. And I think we have to go back from the inception to understand the context of how this all happened. Around about February of this year, the Reserve Bank was concerned around various aspects regarding the bank, and it placed the bank under what it would term as heightened supervision. Following further assessments, that then led to the Reserve Bank, which is now the Prudential Authority, placing the bank under curatorship, and that was on 11th of March 2018, which is when I stepped in with my team on the understanding that we needed to resolve a liquidity crisis.
Liquidity crisis, the bank's debits and credits don't quite match. Let's help them restore their accounts. That was what was anticipated was the problem, right?
Absolutely, because during that phase of heightened supervision, the bank actually defaulted on its settlement on the national payment system. That was the one trigger that then caused the sequence of events happening.
Every day, banks need to do a set of accounts that then get pinged to the Reserve Bank, and if everything is in order, everyone goes to bed and has a good night's sleep. One day, everybody lost sleep because there was a warning.
Absolutely. There was a breach on the system, which led to the curatorship team being appointed. And exactly that, trying to repair a liquidity crisis. And upon my initial assessments, found that there was much more going on here.
How long did it take you from the moment you walked in through the door to then get full access to all of the accounts of VBS? You realized there was a lot more at stake here than a liquidity crisis.
As you'd imagine, there was some resistance because there were early attempts to set aside the curatorship as well. So that was challenged. And then access to information was very slow. It was very slow goings at first. But we pushed on, we pressed on. And that allowed me to uncover various aspects of governance breaches, mismanagement, poor controls, non-existence controls.
Was it a matter of days or weeks?
Weeks, yeah.
And so from the moment you walked in through the door, there was resistance to give you information. Have you been able to pinpoint whether or not the rot stopped the moment you walked through the door, or whether there was an acceleration of rot while you were trying to figure out what was going on behind the scenes?
A combination of things, really, with information trying to be concealed. Which then prompted me to make a recommendation, an urgent recommendation to the Prudential Authority to appoint an investigator. And as you know, Curator Matau was then subsequently appointed, and that's now running as a parallel process to the curatorship team.
Now, we watch the movies and we get a very good idea. People put bandanas over their faces, maybe they put a little black mask on with little slits in it, and they go into the bank with 2 guns, make everybody lie on the ground, empty the safe and put cash in the bags marked with little dollar signs, and then everybody rides out of town on their horses. That's the image we have of a bank robbery or a cash in transit heist. People force a cash in transit truck off the road, explosions happen, people get hurt. This was a very different kind of bank robbery.
Yes, I think as my senior counsel had coined it, these were criminals similar to bank robbers, but the only difference was that they carried suitcases and they wore fancy Armani suits.
You use very defamatory and strong language in describing, but defamatory. Nobody's been found guilty in a court of law yet. What gives you the confidence to use the strength of language that you use in a case like this?
So the investigation process certainly helped unravel and uncover the matters fairly quickly. And the words were necessary because it was quite blatant. By then we could see what was transpiring. And I think that was confirmed when the judge, who was very exemplary and very confident in his judgment.
What judgment here? This is the judgment that ordered that the curatorship should go ahead.
No, it's a judgment with regards to my civil proceedings to place the Vele group, as well as the 5 perpetrators, into a liquidation and provisional sequestration. So that really confirmed to a large extent the damage that was done and the theft, the large-scale fraud that has been perpetuated against the bank.
What did they do?
So very simply, a couple of things. Firstly, creating fake deposits and allowing that to go through to clients or to related parties who would then draw out real cash from the bank. Another mechanism would be to grant overdraft facilities to related parties. And upon the balance reaching a certain level, the balance would then be cleared the next day by, again, utilizing fictitious deposits. So those were but 2 of a few of the combinations of the scheme of the fraud that had been perpetuated. Now,
surely this is why any company, and particularly banks, have got multiple layers of audit. There's an internal audit process. I don't think VBS was big enough to have 2 independent sets of auditors. Maybe that was the weakness. But there were auditors, and these were auditors from the very well-known company, KPMG.
Correct. KPMG were the external auditors, or are the external auditors, and PwC are the internal auditors of the bank.
All right. So 2 sets of auditors, and nobody picked anything up?
Appears not, yes.
How is that possible?
That's one of the matters that I have flagged as well. I mean, clearly there are alarm bells that should go off for service providers or assurance providers, as we refer to them in the market. And it does concern me that these flags and bells were not ringing loud enough for these assurance providers.
This is a small bank. This is a bank that barely registered on the radar. If you'd gone down the street before Jacob Zuma got a home loan to cover his non-security expenses at Nkandla, very few people would ever have heard of 1 VBS, 2 a mutual bank, or any of the key players in this.
Very much so. It's a bank that started
1982.
Correct, and it was back then referred to as a collective savings.
This is what makes this so vulgar and so insidious. Is the roots of this particular financial institution comes from burial societies in the old Venda. This is poor people looking to club together to put their deposits in a place of safety, because you don't keep your money in a coffee tin. That's not safe. Somebody could break into your house and rob you. But that happened anyway.
Absolutely, Bruce. It's people at the grassroots levels, and that's the sad story about this. It's the vulnerable depositors, as we refer to them as, and those were the retail depositors. And it was certainly one of the success factors for this affected group of vulnerable depositors when we were able to allow them access to their money. As part of the curatorship process, I had no choice but to put limits in place where they could only withdraw 1,000 rand a day. Burial societies that could only get up to 7,000 rand a day, or per burial rather. And we had to balance out the social issues, about allowing an individual to bury a loved one with dignity and having access to cash. So with people sleeping outside of the bank, that certainly didn't help the situation. So it was certainly a success when I was able to utilize or draw down on the government guarantee. And
we'll talk about that. That's an important part of understanding this process and giving everybody a sense of comfort. Because when you look at this process and you see that 2 teams of auditors, internal and external, didn't pick anything up, it was only when there was a flag raised at the Reserve Bank that a problem was then flagged. Are our checks and balances within the South African financial system strong enough, good enough to prevent this from happening in future at a bigger bank, one that could have systemic risk? In other words, something that could damage the entire financial system. More on that in a moment.